One team that has brought a very different approach and ending to the 2021 season was Red Bull, as Verstappen not only won the championship, but pushed Hamilton to his absolute limits. The fact that Mercedes were winning races up until the 2021 season without a problem has become too much boredom for the fans, and luckily, Red Bull broke that curse in 2021. Although the championship was won in a controversial way, and many feel like Hamilton was robbed of his 8th record-breaking championship, it is what it is, and Verstappen is currently chasing his 2nd career championship with Red Bull. But there are some accusations coming towards Red Bull, as they have been accused of breaching the 2021 budget cap. Are these allegations true? And if so, what are the repercussions that the Austrian team will face? Stick around with us to find out more. Red Bull and Mercedes went into a toe-to-toe battle in 2021, and it became evident that when you race in such a close manner, there are going to be some emotions involved in and out of the track. However, that is not today's topic, as it seems like Red Bull has breached the budget cap limit that first came into law in 2021. The budget cap does not allow an F1 team to spend more than a certain amount of money in trying to keep racing closer and keep the sport more interesting. The budget cap for the 2021 season was $145 million. As for the 2022 season, it was lowered by $5 million or $140 million, and the FIA will lower the price of the budget cap the next year by an additional $5 million or $135 million. This means that an F1 team needs to be in the range of this money when it comes to spendings, inventing upgrades, and basically everything that revolves around an F1 team. For 2022, F1 teams have received an additional $4 million due to the inflation that is mostly boosted due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. There have been many cries to increase the budget cap in the upcoming period, but none of them is fruitful so far, and it seems like the teams have to satisfy with what they're given by the FIA. However, it seems like Red Bull wasn't able to comply with the rules in 2021, and according to some reports, they have breached the $145 million that was allowed to be spent in that season. What's even more controversial is that this is the season Verstappen won his maiden championship, so one could understand why Red Bull pushed the boundaries of what was allowed in order to achieve what's been missing in their team for 7 years, a driver's championship. According to German and Italian media, Red Bull has breached the agreements of the $145 million in annual spendings and has gone well over this budget in order to achieve its goals. When you exceed a budget cap, there is an opportunity for you to hire more people, conduct more testing, or produce more parts that could be implemented on the car in the later phases of the season. Despite Red Bull's development push, which secured the first championship for one of its drivers since 2013, the team began the new season in strong shape. The new RB18 has proved to be the car to beat since they have fixed the majority of its early season troubles. Verstappen can win the championship as soon as this week in Singapore, and they are unlikely to be challenged for the #1 spot in the Constructors' Championship too. Last year's championship was overshadowed by the mishandling of the title-deciding Abu Dhabi GP by the F1's director Michael Masi, who lost his job after the sport's governing body admitted he made an error in arranging a final lap restart, as he allowed only a portion of the lapped cars to regain the lead lap instead of them all. An FIA spokesperson told the media, "The FIA is currently finalizing the assessment of the 2021 financial data submitted by all Formula One teams. Alleged breaches of the financial regulations, if any, will be dealt with according to the formal process set out in the regulations." Let's hypothetically say that Red Bull has breached the budget cap and that they are found guilty of doing so. What are the repercussions that they might face? For starters, there could be fines that are yet to be determined on a case-by-case basis. After that, the deduction of points from the Constructors' Championship for the season in which the breach occurred could happen, and the same thing could happen to the Drivers' Championship for the season in which the breach occurred. Red Bull may see suspension from sessions during race weekends, such as practice, qualifying and sprint races, but not GPs themselves. This means that the drivers will be able to race, but will start at the back of the grid and try to push themselves through the grid, which shouldn't be a problem given the fact of what kind of machinery Red Bull built in 2022. Limits on aerodynamic testing allowances are also possible, or a reduction of cost cap for the season following from a year when the sanction is applied are the likely outcomes of Red Bull's potential breach. The latter means that the team will have a reduced cap for 2023 on top of the $5 million that the FIA plans to implement on all teams. For teams that overspend more than 5%, the cost cap adjudication panel can apply the same sanctions as we spoke about in this video, but with the additional option of excluding teams from the championship. These penalties can also be suspended, meaning that they will not be applied directly, but if a team commits a similar breach a second time. Apart from Red Bull, it's rumored that Aston Martin is the second team that has committed a breach of the budget cap, but they are not as attractive and controversial as Red Bull. What happens next with Red Bull? Obviously, they're going to be at the center of the attention, especially from Ferrari, who has already accused Red Bull of breaching the 2022 cap so early in the season. According to Matteo Binotto, there isn't a way that a team can implement so many upgrades through a season and still remain within the budget cap, and if that was the case with Ferrari, they wouldn't be able to do the same as Red Bull. This came after Red Bull announced that they plan on implementing a new monocoque from the Singapore GP that will make the car lighter by 5 kilograms. There is an aspect that Red Bull has struggled with a lot in 2022, and according to Binotto, he has no idea where Red Bull found the financial fundings for a project like this. I myself have no idea what they're doing, whether they have a lighter chassis or not, but the budget cap is always a concern. In addition to technical and sporting regulations, we also have to deal with financial regulations, and that can also cause differences between the teams purely by how those regulations are interpreted. We need a strong FIA who is on top of this, because otherwise those rules are not fair and equal for everyone. But as I said, I can't judge Red Bull's lighter chassis and whether they have it or not, but I do know that Ferrari couldn't do that because of the budget cap, said Binotto, who continued to speak about the other team's possibility to do what Red Bull has done, adding, "I would be very surprised if another team turns out to be able to do that, and if it is, then we come back to the regulations. Are they fair enough? Do they seem equal enough for everyone? And is it adequately monitored? These are big question marks. The rules are still very new and are only checked by a small number of people, so that has to be improved with a view to the future. It would be a bad thing if the championship is determined by financial regulations and not through technological battle," finished Binotto. However, according to Red Bull, they used the money from the financial boost of the FIA, more precisely 50% of that money went into building the new monocoque. This means that one monocoque costs $1 million, and given the fact that they built 2 of those, that means that 2 out of the $4 million in help went to this innovation. It's hard to believe that Red Bull is keeping track of everything they are spending so far, so these accusations could be real ones. Keep in mind that Red Bull is the only manufacturer that hasn't struggled with the porpoising phenomenon, and that mostly goes to the genius mind of Adrian Newey. However, we are 100% certain that those parts are not cheap, and that the innovation itself isn't something that can be brought for a small amount of money. With that being said, Red Bull does have some explaining to do when it comes to where their money went. What do you think about this matter? Do you think that Red Bull breached the budget cap in 2022? Let us know in the comments below.